So this week I will be doing the quote of the week. And the quote of this week is, do not ignore the consequences of reality. Once again, do not ignore the consequences of reality. And that can go several different ways. But the simple way to really break that down is, don't ignore what could really happen with your own thoughts, with your own feelings. Don't ignore what's really going on in real life right in front of you for your feelings and what you think is going to happen, because a lot of times people, when I say they ignore the reality, things are not going right in their life that they know they need to get on track. You know what I'm saying? Their mindset, their spirit, they need to get their job together. They need to get their life together. They need to get their reality together, and a lot of times people, do so much to escape reality. They do whatever they can to get out of where they really are, that they ignore the fact that they will receive consequences for ignoring reality, the things that are actually happening in real time. And you can run from what's happening in life as long as you can. You can try to run from God as long as you can. You can do anything that you want to do in life, but you cannot ignore the consequences of your actions. You cannot ignore the consequences of the things that you're ignoring and not facing in reality. And it's easy to say, hey, I want to get away from reality. I need to get away from this, and that's fine. Sometimes you need a break. God allows breaks. He allows you to have that time where it's to yourself, where you can get yourself together. But don't just go off into this world where you're not actually realizing, hey, this is the reality of this. You're living in a fantasy world. That's what some people call it. You living in a fantasy or a dream. And then real stuff starts happening, and you've done so much ignoring reality that everything's crashing. And you like, why is everything crashing? This is like the same way as ignoring God, and God giving you a signal or a sign to connect, and you just keep on ignoring it. You just keep doing what you want. And God's an understanding God. He understands the human beings. He created us. So he knows you're going to stray away, you're going to do whatever, and not try to accept what's going on in life, or go to him to get help with what's going on in life. But the more you avoid reality, the more you avoid God, the more you avoid life, the consequences on the other end are even greater. It's like basically like, hey, I'll give you an example if y'all really need one. You don't pay rent. You just say, I'm not going to pay rent for 30 days, whatever the case may be. You're not going to pay rent. You're not going to pay your bills. Yeah, you can keep all the money you making and you can have it up, but when it's time for your bills to get paid and the electric and the rent, everything get paid, and you haven't paid anything because you've been ignoring reality, you will receive the consequence of maybe being kicked from your home, your electricity being cut off because you ignored the consequences of reality, man. You got to face reality, man. I know it's tough. I'm not saying you can't take your breaks, but reality is serious, man. But you got anything to say on that?
I thought disrespect when you was talking. And I want to read this. I'm just going to read this. I looked at the word disrespect. This is what God says about disrespect. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 15:33. This is what God says. Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins morals. Do not be deceived. He said, when I used to hang around drug dealers, I started selling drugs. When I started hanging around guys with guns, I started robbing people. Whenever, I'm just using these as examples of when you ignore reality of, if you start selling drugs, you subject to get busted. You subject to get robbed. You subject to get killed. So when he said don't ignore reality, the consequences of reality, so the consequence, there we go again. That's why I read the scripture. It says bad company. So if I hang around people who gut out on drinking beer or eating food all the time, I get fat.
That's the reality.
That's the reality. So the reality is, you always get that second thought about a situation you may be in, good or bad. It comes with a reality. Give you an example. Cigarettes. The reality is, on the packet it says if you smoke the cigarettes, you can catch cancer. But you still smoke.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Another example, we talking about ignoring reality. Ignoring the consequences of reality. If the street light says red and you walk in the street and get hit by a car and it was red, you ignore reality and the fact that. But to bring it on, I'm just using practical examples from the human point of view, from the person's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
But the deal is, my main motive is this. If you ignore the fact that God created you, no excuse. You look at the trees, you look at the sun, the moon. You know man didn't create that. All right. So God uses everything he can to get you to recognize that he exists.
Reality.
That's right. Air we breathe, the water we drink. And you decide that you want to still disrespect the fact that God exists. That's the reality of that. Once you disconnect yourself like that, then God lead you to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's the consequence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a terrible place to be in when you actually can look at two parts. You know the situation, you know what it's worth to you, and you decide to ignore it.
Ignoring reality, man, you're going to face the consequences. That's a definite fact, man. Do not ignore the consequences of reality. Do not ignore reality. You know what I'm saying? It's probably the most dangerous thing you can do to yourself, man. Reality, God, like he said, God gives you the air, everything. We live in reality on a consistent basis. You feel me? So if you try to escape consistent reality, it's like you're trying to escape God. So you have problems with that, man. Quote of the week.
Subject for the